Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is JC and Stuff here. Today we're going to be using this ultrasonic thickness gauge. As I promised in my last video, I was going to show you a little more of how this thing works. To do that, I'm going to be measuring different materials. Two of them which I know what they're made up of. This, for instance, is a platinum bar. So you can see it's 1 troy ounce of platinum. And then this other one is labeled as a troy ounce of silver. The speeds of sound through each of these metals, I've labeled them here. For instance, platinum, it's about 3,830 meters per second. And the speed of sound through silver is about 3,600 meters per second. As you can see, I've also written the density of each. For instance, platinum has a density of about 21.45 grams per cubic centimeter, and silver has a density of about 10.49 grams per cubic centimeter. This is why, as you can see, my silver bar is almost twice as big, or rather it's like almost like a 1:2 scale of my platinum bar. Now on this side, I have two unknown items. I have this disc, I labeled as disc, and then this one is the cube. I don't know what these things are made up of. I do know, however, that this one is very heavy. This one, the cube, is very heavy, and this one is really light. It seems like it's somewhat lighter than the silver, as a matter of fact. So the first thing I'm gonna do to try to find out what these two things are, I'm going to find out the density of it. For instance, I'm gonna take the density of the disk and I'm gonna compare that density to that of any known material in our periodic table. I'm gonna compare the density, and then if for instance the density of this thing matches that of per se uh, silver or nickel or what have you, then I will go ahead and use that density, and then I will name that material. I will name this disc with that particular material, and I would treat it as such. For instance, if this turns out to be nickel, I will be putting in the speed of sound for nickel in our thickness gauge, in an ultrasound thickness gauge, and I will be measuring the thickness of it. And once I figure out the thickness readings with our ultrasonic thickness gauge, I will compare that reading to my caliper, to my digital caliper, and thus I will prove that in fact is made up of whatever material I assign to this disc. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna be measuring our silver. We're gonna measure the thickness of our silver. To do that, we're gonna first of all assemble our probe and our digital reader. We're gonna simply plug in the probe into the digital reader. These two prongs, it doesn't really matter the order in which they go in, because all they're doing is they're just sending out a sonic signal, and then their signal returns to them. So it doesn't really matter. There's no polarity here. Now we're gonna go ahead and turn our electronic gauge on. And first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that we have in fact the velocity of silver. Again, on this particular model, to dial in the velocity of silver, all you have to do is just hit the valve button and then just scroll down until you see the silver, highlight silver, and then just hit OK twice. And then after you hit OK twice, it should be a green dot on the highlighted silver. Once it's the green dot is on it, then you go ahead and hit the escape button, and then you would have the speed of silver here. It should say 3,600 meters per second. Now, before we even use this reader, we have to calibrate it. And the way we do that is we have this nice 4 millimeter steel disc in the front already built in. And what you do is you hit the escape button, and then a few words are going to come on the bottom of it, on the bottom of the screen. One of them is going to be the word cal. When you hit, when you highlight cal and you hit OK, that's hits the calibrating function. Once you put your ultrasonic gel on top of the disc and you put the probe on it, it will start doing the calibration of the tool. So there you have it. It's already been calibrated. Make sure you wipe this off. Now we're gonna measure the thickness of this silver bar. We're gonna put some ultrasound gel on it before we put the probe on. I chose this particular point in between the seal and the 8-mix writing, and I'm gonna go ahead and set it down, and I'm gonna measure the thickness of it at that point. And as you can see in my thickness gauge is measuring about 2.36 millimeters. So I'm gonna go ahead and compare that reading, 2.36 at this point. I'm gonna measure it with my digital caliper. And then should be very close to that reading, if not the same. But first of all, you got to make sure that your caliper is calibrated also, that it's calibrated to 0 before you begin. Okay, so we're going to measure at the same point in which we measure with the ultrasound thickness gauge. And it's reading about 2.33 millimeters. So it's fairly close. Again, 2.34, 2.33. So it's fairly close. So we can definitely say that this, in fact, is a silver bar at this point, because the density matches, the thickness matches, so therefore it's silver. Now we're gonna go ahead and measure our platinum bar. Now to dial the platinum, it's a little more tricky because, again, we don't have platinum in our list. However, we do have a function where it says custom, and then here you can select either one, custom 1, 2, or 3. Once you hit the OK button, then you can scroll to the left or and then up and down rather. So as you can see, I've already dialed the speed of platinum on this one. But if you want to see how it's done, you just basically scroll to the left with this velocity key, and then you go up or down to change the values. And then if you keep doing that with the other digits, like for instance, you can change to 39 or 8, and then you can scroll to the left again and then change this to 4, 3, or 2, it doesn't matter. So we're gonna leave it at 3830, which is the speed of sound through platinum. Then we're gonna hit OK, and then hit again OK, and then escape twice. So now we have the speed of sound through platinum dialed in as 3830 meters per second. So we're gonna go ahead and measure our platinum bar. I'm gonna go ahead and measure it here in the middle of this square. So that's where I'm gonna put my ultrasound gel. So I'm gonna set my bar here, and I'm gonna see what reading I get. Okay, so I'm getting about 1.81 millimeters. 1. Always try to use the smallest values because that's the closest it's going to be to. So 1.76. We're going to go ahead and use 1.76 at the center of this square. Now we're going to measure with our caliper, with our dial caliper. Again, make sure it's calibrated to 0 before you use it. Close it all the way. Now we're going to measure the thickness at that same exact point. So as you can see, it's about pretty close. It's about 1.78 millimeters. So this in fact shows you that this is about 1.78. Yep. So yeah, it's pretty much, you can safely say that this is a platinum bar because we've already measured the density of it and we've sent an ultrasonic wave through it to measure the thickness of it, and then we compare that thickness to our caliper and it checked out. So therefore this in fact is a platinum bar. Now to do the other part of our experiment, we're gonna, to find out what these two other items are, we're gonna use a couple more items. We're gonna use a scale, some thread, and this little thing right here, which is gonna hold my thread. Okay, let's begin. Okay, first of all, we're gonna be measuring the weight for each of these unknown items. And then this is why I brought out my handy scale. As you can see, put a little bit more focus on this. So I'm gonna tear my scale and measure the weight of this, and I'm gonna record it. It's about 12.18 grams. I don't know if you can see it there. 12.18. Let's do that again. Yeah, about 12.18. 12.18 grams. So we're gonna go ahead and record that for our disc. 12.18. Now we're gonna measure our cube. Again, tear. So it's about 39.73. We do this a couple times to make sure. 39.73, 74. We'll say 39.73. Let's do that again. 39.73. 74. 39.74 grams. So now we're going to measure the volume of these two things.